Most people hear one number when they think about retirement spending: 4%. It's often presented as a rule, a guideline, something reliable. If you stay within it, you're safe. If you go above it, you're reckless. But many retirees quietly feel uneasy relying on a single number to guide decades of spending. And that discomfort isn't irrational. It's because the safe withdrawal rate is often misunderstood, not because it's useless, but because it's incomplete. The idea sounds reassuring. You save your money. You withdraw a fixed percentage each year, and the math takes care of the rest. It feels clean, predictable, objective. But retirement isn't static. Life doesn't unfold according to a fixed percentage. The safe withdrawal rate was never meant to be a promise. It was a research observation. It came from studying historical market data and asking a narrow question. What withdrawal rate would have survived the worst market periods in the past? That's very different from asking what will feel comfortable for a real person over 30 years. The number doesn't know your life. It doesn't know your health, your spending flexibility, your income sources, your tolerance for uncertainty, and it certainly doesn't know how you'll feel during a downturn. Many retirees discover this gap the hard way. They follow the rule carefully. They stay disciplined. And yet, they still feel anxious. They worry during market drops. They hesitate to spend during good years. They constantly calculate whether they're staying on track. That's not because they're doing it wrong. It's because a percentage can't replace judgment. One problem with the safe withdrawal rate is that it assumes consistency. Consistent spending, consistent behavior, consistent emotional response. But real spending is uneven. Some years are heavier, some are lighter, some bring surprises. A rigid rule doesn't adapt well to that reality. Another issue is timing. The order of returns matters. Losses early in retirement are far more damaging than losses later. The same withdrawal rate can feel manageable in one scenario and terrifying in another. The number doesn't adjust for that. It treats all years as equal. Retirees don't experience them that way. There's also the psychological impact. When people rely on a rule, they often stop thinking contextually. They focus on compliance instead of comfort. They ask, "Am I within the limit?" instead of, "Does this make sense right now?" That mindset can lead to unnecessary restriction. I've seen retirees with ample resources live more cautiously than needed because they were afraid of breaking the rule. Not because they lacked money, but because they lacked confidence. On the other end, some people push the rule too hard. They assume it guarantees safety. They ignore changes in spending, health, or markets. And when reality diverges from the model, stress spikes. The truth is, the safe withdrawal rate is a starting point, not a strategy. It was never designed to handle taxes. It doesn't account for pensions or Social Security timing. It doesn't adjust for spending flexibility. It doesn't respond to emotional comfort. It's a blunt tool applied to a nuanced situation. Retirees who feel most comfortable tend to think differently. They don't ask, "What percentage can I withdraw?" They ask, "How do my expenses break down? Which expenses are essential? Which are optional? Which can be adjusted temporarily?" They focus on income, not just withdrawals. They separate guaranteed income from variable income. They build buffers for bad years instead of assuming every year will cooperate. This approach changes everything. Instead of reacting to market movement, they respond to it. Instead of fearing every downturn, they understand its impact. Instead of obsessing over a number, they focus on sustainability. Another overlooked issue is inflation. The safe withdrawal rate assumes inflation-adjusted spending. But inflation doesn't affect all expenses equally. Some costs rise faster than others. Healthcare, insurance, services. A fixed rule can't capture that complexity. Without adjustment, retirees may either overspend early or underspend unnecessarily later. Neither feels good. The retirees who feel calm often give themselves permission to be flexible. They spend less in down years. They spend more in good years. They adapt without guilt. They understand that safety comes from resilience, not rigidity. This doesn't mean rules are useless. It means rules need context. A framework is helpful. A formula is not enough. Part of the problem is how the safe withdrawal rate has been marketed. It started as academic research, a historical analysis meant to inform professional financial planning. But over time, it became simplified, popularized, turned into a soundbite that people could remember and repeat. That simplification stripped away important context. The original research included caveats, assumptions, limitations, but those details got lost in translation. What remained was a number that felt authoritative, a rule that felt safe to follow, and for many people, that felt like enough. But rules designed for average scenarios don't always fit individual realities, and retirement is deeply individual. Some retirees have pensions that cover most expenses. For them, portfolio withdrawals are supplemental. The 4% rule doesn't really apply in the same way. Some retirees are willing to adjust spending significantly during downturns. They have flexibility built into their lifestyle. For them, a higher withdrawal rate might be perfectly sustainable. Some retirees have health concerns that shorten their time horizon. For them, the conservative assumptions built into the rule might mean unnecessarily sacrificing enjoyment. The rule doesn't differentiate between these situations. It treats everyone the same. And that uniformity creates problems. It leads some people to be overly cautious when they don't need to be. It leads others to feel falsely secure when they should be more careful. Neither outcome serves the retiree well. Another complication is that the safe withdrawal rate was developed using U.S. market data from a specific historical period. It assumes a certain mix of stocks and bonds, a certain pattern of returns and inflation. But future markets may not behave like past markets. The economic environment changes, interest rates shift, inflation patterns evolve. A rule based entirely on historical data may not be as reliable going forward as it was looking backward. And yet, many retirees treat it as gospel. This isn't to say the research was flawed, it was valuable. It provided insight into how withdrawal rates interact with market volatility over time. But it was never meant to be the final word. It was meant to be the beginning of a conversation. A tool for thinking about sustainability, not a substitute for planning. The challenge is that many retirees never have that conversation. They hear the number, they adopt it, and they stop asking questions. They don't explore what happens if markets underperform. They don't consider how their personal spending might deviate from the model. They don't think about how other income sources change the equation, so when reality doesn't match the model, they feel confused, or betrayed, or anxious, not because the rule failed them, but because they were relying on it to do something it was never designed to do. Retirement success isn't about perfectly following a percentage. It's about understanding how spending, income, and time interact. When people shift from rule following to understanding, anxiety decreases. They stop asking whether they're breaking the rules. They start asking whether their choices align with their priorities. That's a healthier question. It acknowledges that retirement isn't a math problem to be solved once. It's a dynamic situation that requires ongoing attention and adjustment. The retirees who navigate this best don't abandon structure, but they don't worship it either. They use guidelines as reference points, not as constraints. They check in periodically. They adjust when circumstances change. They stay engaged without becoming obsessed. That balance is what creates sustainable confidence. Not the certainty that nothing will go wrong, but the assurance that they can handle whatever does. In future videos, we'll explore how retirees move beyond rigid withdrawal rules, how income-focused planning reduces stress, and how confidence grows when flexibility is built into the plan. No fear, no pressure, just clarity. Because retirement security isn't created by a number. It's created by understanding how that number fits into real life.